Hey, people of the internet, my name is Joe Prue, and welcome to Joe Prue Music Reviews. Ought is a, I believe, sorry. Ought is a Canadian art rock band, Montreal to be more specific, and this is their second full-length album. They put out an album last year titled More Than Any Other Day, which is an album that I did not give a listen to, mostly because there was so much good indie rock coming out last year. It kind of just slipped through the cracks for me. A lot of people were liking what this band was doing, but thought that they were kind of showing a lot of their influences on their sleeves, which is nothing new for a band that's just trying to figure themselves out. And it seemed that Ott was still kind of doing that on that debut record. At least that's what I've heard from people. And with this new full-length album titled Sun Coming Down coming out just a year later, I think some people might have been skeptical of this record, and I wasn't going to give it a listen, mostly because of the kind of lukewarm, kind of positive, but kind of lukewarm reviews to the debut. However, I've seen a couple of reviews from guys that I really trust the musical taste of. The Needle Drop and Spectrum Pulse give this album a review, and they were very positive about this thing. Didn't say it was a perfect album, but definitely said it was an improvement for Ott. And so I decided to give it a listen. I mean, I'm always up for some new indie rock, art rock, apparently. And I'm happy to say that I am enjoying this record. But let me just kind of answer some questions that you might be asking. Actually, let's answer 4 questions here that I think you're probably going to be wondering about this release. Is the style of rock music that these guys are doing, is their sound kind of pretentious? And would it come off as pretentious to outsiders that just don't get down with the hipster underground scene? Yeah, I could see that happening, yeah. Is it to me a perfect album, or will it be to anyone a perfect album? No, it won't. Do I wish that the lead singer of this band just had a bit more of melody, or just instead of just talking his way through a lot of these songs, actually had some vocal melodies when he sang all this weird poetry, and actually had some melodies that really stuck out? I wish there was more melody on this record. But does all these immediate flaws on this record, is it enough to not give this album a listen? And no, it's not. You should definitely give this album a listen. I think it has a lot going for it. This band's sound lends itself to a lot of rock bands that I'm pretty fond of. The lead vocalist of this band, definitely his voice, the sound of his voice and his vocal inflections definitely lend itself to bands like The Fall or Talking Heads. When these guys go on these elongated musical passages, sort of playing around with some sounds sometimes, they kind of remind me of Driftless Pony Club when they put their instrumental passages into their songs. And the sort of aesthetic that this band kind of goes for on this record is sort of all this weird, sometimes catchy, but very weird out there poetry over these really elongated, repetitive, psychedelic rock, art rock, maybe post-punkish at times. Grooves that, I love almost every single track instrumentally across this record. And really, the only time that I'm not a huge fan of this record is when the compositions are just kind of not all there. And while this album is not catchy, per se, it is incredibly memorable. The opening track on here, Men for Miles, I love the groove on this track. I love the groove on pretty much every track on this here, but this groove really kicks off the album well. And I love how the drumming changes pace on the sort of chorus part here, where that refrain is probably the catchiest refrain on this entire record. That was meant for miles, that was meant for miles. And I like how the track ends too, which was very nice and peaceful. And it goes right into the second track on here, Passionate Turn, which is another favorite of mine on this thing. And I think again, just how tight this band is on this song. Just like so many tight performances on this thing, even though it is a very raw album in its recording, in the way that it moves in through different parts of the songs. It's very raw, but just the performance is still just so tight, so together, so in sync. And the vocals on this track, though, I mean, they're still the same vocals that you hear on every single track on this record. It feels like they're becoming a little bit more emotional and passionate on this track, which is kind of ironic, passionate turn, name of the song. Well, then we get to the third track on here, The Combo, which is another solid track on here, and I just like it because of how explosive it is. It's one of the shorter tracks on here, but it definitely is still one of the memorable tracks on here. Just another really, really memorable performance, especially with these sort of explosions of guitar on this track, and drums, and just the changes of tempo. It's quite the tune. Then we kind of hit a lull for me on the album in the middle track on here. This is an 8-track album. This is the 4th track on here, the title track on here, the lead single from this record. It's really a song that I'm not too crazy about. It's decent. I do like the kind of noisy guitars in it and some of the lyrics of this track. However, it is just kind of not as memorable as some of the other tracks on this record. But yeah, this is like one of the few tracks here where that just the band's formula just does not work, unfortunately. But despite all that, we get to possibly the best song on this record, one of my favorite songs of this year, on the 5th track of this 8-track album, the song Beautiful Blue Sky. It's the longest track on this album at just around 7.5 minutes. And oh my goodness, it is a beast of a tune. The performance on this track is just so amazing. I love the groove of this track. I love the kind of distorted keyboard sort of playing in the left ear channel throughout the track, and how the band just gets, when they sort of get into this kind of chorus part, the band just escalates. The guitars just start strumming harder. The drumming gets more intense. And I love the lyrics on this track. It's actually one of my favorite tracks lyrically of the year, too. The track seems to, in a weird way, but still, I think what it's trying to do is sort of like poke fun at societal norms, and how, daily interactions and routines can really take the meaning out of life. And I think that's really shown in the chorus here, and it gets actually hilarious in the chorus here, when we sort of had these repeating refrains of like people greeting others in like this old-timey vibe in this old-timey kind of talk, how's the family, how's the family, how's the family, how's the family, beautiful weather today, beautiful weather. And it's so freaking funny, but still the performances behind it, how energetic and how blissful and how uplifting the music is on this track. It's just so perfect, and I couldn't ask it to be different at all. I also like the way the track ends on here with the sort of sounds like guitar feedback, but it's sort of tuned into one note, and it just sounds really, really nice, just really warm and really relaxing as the track sort of plods out. I mean, wow, just an unbelievable track from these guys. And unfortunately, after this track, we get probably the worst track on the record with the song Celebration. It's the shortest track on here. It's one of the highest energy tracks on here, but it just doesn't really captivate me all that much. Unfortunately, I just don't think the composition here is all that great. And that's another thing. Across this album, there are just some tracks on here that just end kind of abruptly. And while I don't mind abrupt endings in songs, I think some of these songs could have used better endings, especially the closer on here, Never Better, which I like throughout the track. I actually really like this track a lot. I think it would have closed the album out well if it had a better ending to it. However, it just kind of stops out of nowhere. And maybe Beautiful Blue Sky does kind of end a little abruptly, though I do like the ending of that track anyway. But really, those are the only moments where I think the ending of the track really hurts the song. And the other track I haven't mentioned yet, On the Line, I mean, this is another solid track. It's not one of my favorites on here, but it's definitely a very enjoyable track. It's another one sort of in the vein of the rest of the songs on here. And one thing I have to say about this album is thank the Lord Jesus Christ that this album is only 8 tracks and 40 minutes. Because I don't know if anybody, including myself, could have managed to stay like alive in here, like still listening to this song, to this album for like, I don't know, like an hour long album from these guys. I don't think I could like process it, because this album is very kind of weird, and it is quite a trip for some people. I think it will be, especially people that are used to pop song structures and a lot of melody in their songs. This album is not like that. This album is way more jammy and free flowing and just sort of, just breezy. And I think it's the better for it. I think these big guys have really kind of found their own, kind of have their own personality on this record, which a lot of people said they did not have a personality on their last record. And I feel like they kind of solved that on here. And even though this album isn't perfect, and I still think it has some flaws, I'm happy to say that these guys have put together a great little album, a great project. And I am very excited to see what these guys do next. And I hope that these guys continue to do what they're doing. Good job, guys. My score and my favorite and least favorite tracks from this record are going to be all in the description. You can go check it out there. You can also check out all my social media stuff and all my music stuff there. Definitely request albums in the comments below that you want me to review. Maybe I'll review them, maybe I won't, I don't know. What did you guys think of this thing? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Definitely go give it a listen. I'll put a link in the description so you can go check it out. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I really love this thing, honestly. I think it's a great record. But that is it. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Joe Prue. This is Joe Prue Music Reviews, and I am out!